Strangely enough, the first thing I noticed about the AK here was the ejection pattern. If you've seen a real AK fired, it's got a really aggressive forward and upward ejection pattern. So slightly weaker enough to the side pinged something in my brain that wasn't quite right there. That's something you're only going to get absolutely right if you've had a camera behind a real AK shooting or have found some footage of it doing that. The other thing from the first person perspective is the depiction of recoil, which I think is good. The AK is an excellent weapon, but the impulse of a relatively powerful intermediate cartridge and the shape of the buttstock and the mass of the bolt carrier slamming back means it does tend to jump. So although the AK was designed very much for automatic fire, it was 2 to 3 rounds from the shoulder, anything more than that and it does become a bit uncontrollable. And I think that comes across well. I've grabbed an AK, not because none of you have seen an AK before, you have. This is one of my favourite objects in the collection. This is actually from Vietnam and it's really something to hold this every time I pick it up. Just a quick word on some of the gameplay mechanics that I find interesting. I appreciate any depiction of suppression. So if you've ever played paintball or airsoft, you know a little bit of what it's like to have something that might hurt you or at least annoy you fly right past you, and it forces you to keep your head down. And an awful lot of firepower is about keeping the enemy's heads down while some of you maneuver into position to attack them. And so many games just don't do it. It's a really quite an engaging bit of gameplay if you can get it right. Now, I haven't played this one, but it looks like they might have. Something I didn't notice right away is the little icon that pops up where you've got your weapon resting on something. And I think that implementation of a stability mechanic might be the only one I've seen. I've played games where you press a button to sort of hook onto something, and LMGs where the bipod sort of deploys automatically if you're in the right sort of context. I haven't seen that for rifles, and it's completely, well, not completely realistic, but it's based on, of course, the real world, where if you can at all possibly steady your weapon on something, you will. The weapon is visibly more stable, less muzzle flip, and the player is able to return fire and take out the enemy. So, really impressive. Not a super common machine gun in video games, though it does exist elsewhere. It fits the Vietnam setting as slightly long in the tooth, but still current-ish. It looks to be well represented. I haven't got one handy to show you, but we do have them in the collection here. I am really intrigued by something else I've not seen done before, is the idea that you have to put the gun on something to reload it. This idea of Ramboing it from the hip, that happened. Reloading it whilst carrying it at the hip, yeah, it's probably doable, but you wouldn't. You'd rest it on the deck. Apart from anything else, you want to make yourself a smaller target while you reload. And these are big, heavy, cumbersome things. So to have an actual mechanic where one of the downsides of having a machine gun is you've got to rest it on something to reload it, thumbs up there for that one. We've also got overheating represented, which we've seen before, but normally overheating is a sort of arbitrary set period of time after which the gun just stops, which isn't really how it works. How it works is more like what we see here, where the more you fire something in a sustained way, the more adverse effects you experience before it eventually fails. And when it fails, it's down, it's gone. It's not as simple as waiting for a bar to decrease as we normally see, or maybe hammering a button to get it to somehow cool down quicker. So the idea that it's got sufficiently hot to glow red and then your point of impact deviates, that's somewhat realistic. So as the barrel droops very slightly, and it wouldn't be noticeable necessarily unless you really went to town, your bullets are no longer hitting where they used to be hitting. The M79 is, of course, a staple of any Vietnam setting, and of course pretty iconic from things like Terminator 2 on the fictional side of it as well. I can't resist grabbing one to show you. So this is a really elegant solution to a problem. Prior to this, you had rifle grenades, and they're a real pain. They've got tremendous recoil, they're quite hard to aim, and they're almost a throwback to the First World War, where we're launching grenades off the end of bolt-action rifles. The technology's not too far away from that. What the shoulder-fired grenade launcher allowed you to do was be a lot more precise at a given distance. And although we don't usually see them used with the sights in fiction, the sights were pretty critical. And that exact mechanic is replicated in the game, and quite excitingly, the adjustable nature of the sight is as well. So you can adjust this in 100-yard increments up to, well, not quite, up to 375 yards, when you are, of course, at quite a steep angle. Just as we see depicted, you open it up with the lever, close it up, and then when you pull the trigger, you get that iconic bloop sound, which I think is really quite well represented as well. If you'd like to support the work that we do here at the Royal Armouries, both with GameSpot and over on our own channel, have a look at the video description. We have a couple of links for you in there. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.